Alright, what's going on, everybody? So, sorry for the noise, I'm outside. But let's clear up some misconceptions, shall we? First of all, the term socialism is a misnomer. You see, in the early 20th century, the left and the right struggled to dominate this word and co-opt it. And unfortunately, the leftists won. But really, at its core, what is socialism? Well, it's fairly simple. You have an apparatus, an entity, commonly known as the state, that takes communal funds and directs them and uses them in the interest of the group, usually the nation in this case. That's all it really is. For example, obviously, in a civilized society, we have policemen and firemen and emergency health services and things like this. These are all communally funded, or at least they should be, to some extent, because these are not things that we would want in the hands of private interests. It furthers the interest of the group. So the communal funds that we all put in together should, in theory, ensure that these services are available. Now, the problem is, of course, that leftists don't understand humans. Their prime directive is, of course, egalitarianism. Egalitarianism doesn't work with human beings. It never has and it never will. So when leftists use the word socialism, what they mean is that they're going to take money from those who do produce and give it to those who don't produce in the name of equality. Now, this, of course, drains the communal fund faster than you can imagine, or, as we've seen currently in our current system. We have taxpayers who produce, and their money is given to those who will never produce. They are a tax loss. They are an income negative. Now, because the right understands economics, when we talk about right-wing socialism, many people give me a weird glare. But it does actually exist. And if you're curious as to what ideologies fall underneath the umbrella term right-wing socialism, well, let me give you an example or two. Fascism, National Socialism, corporatism, I believe syndicalism also falls underneath there, although I don't think they use the state necessarily. I'd have to recheck. But all of these political systems use communal funds in order to further the interests of the group, the nation, or the race. But in doing so, because they're right-wing ideologies, fundamentally, they believe in hierarchy. You don't get to dip your hands into the pot of communal money unless you pay for it. Whether it's paid for in blood or in literal money. You either have to spill blood or create blood in order to get part of that communal money that we've raised. So that means fighting the armed forces, creating children, many children, or working to produce something that's in the interests of the group. For example, in the Third Reich, and there were many problems with the Third Reich economy, I can go into that later, but fundamentally, what the National Socialists did is they took this communal money and they paid people to work on great projects like the Autobahn. Now, under a right-wing socialist system, what we would do, and this is what I advocate for, is we would take those who are unable to find work or those who are between jobs and direct them to build things, improve infrastructure like bridges and water lines, electrical facilities. They would build great works projects. They would clean up the environment, maybe. Now, granted, the pay isn't going to be great, but it's going to give you 3 hots and a cot, so to speak. Enough to get on until you get a job in the private sector. Or, if you're a specialist, you may come work for the state if your work is good. Now, this is the big difference between the left and right-wing versions of socialism. And this is why, if you say socialism is a left-wing construct, you're wrong, factually. In a left-wing system, anyone and everyone can receive welfare of some kind. Under a right-wing socialist system, as I said, you have to give up something. You have to work for it. You don't just receive money for being alive. There's no universal basic income. There's no free welfare. None of that. And the system we have today is somewhere between these two ideas. At least depending on what state you live in the United States. You see, in some states like Texas here, in order to receive welfare, you have to prove that you're searching for a job. And I think this is too lenient. I think if you're going to receive welfare, let's call it, you need to break some sweat. You need to be out in the sun building something for the betterment of the community. At least plant some goddamn trees, pick up some trash, do something that's within the interest of the group. Now, as far as spilling blood, we talked about serving in the armed forces, but when I say create blood, what I mean is to have children. See, I'm in favor of incentivizing the production of children, which is essentially the production of tax money anyway. Giving loans to expecting mothers, complete families that is, mother, father. And the more children you have, the smaller that loan gets until it's fully paid off by the time you have 4 or 5 children. This, I think, is a service to the nation, or if you see it in National Socialist terms, it's a service to the race. Nothing is for free. I see, and many other National Socialists see, the state as a tool to further our interests. That's about it. If it doesn't serve that purpose, then it's no state that I want. Perhaps we'll do a stream about this sometime, but that's all for now. Thanks for watching.